The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
When it comes time to buy insurance for your truck for physical damage, there are two types of policies: actual cash value and stated limit. Landline Now senior correspondent Ashley Blackford sits down with Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waskey of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department to discuss the difference between the two and how to decide which option would be best suited for you. Also on today's program, truckers are often the target of various scams, but of late, truckers and others who use toll roads are being hit with an unprecedented wave of texted and email scam messages. We've spoken with several state departments of transportation, toll road authorities, and other agencies about the current situation, and they all offered both information about how to spot the scam and what to do if the scam targets you. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Looks like New York City's controversial congestion pricing program will remain in place for at least another 6 months. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority and federal government came to that agreement this week, a timeline that allows the case to move through the courts. The goal is to have a resolution by the end of October. The U.S. Department of Transportation earlier this year ordered New York to end the congestion pricing program in order the state defied, so the program remains in place. For commercial truck drivers driving a multi-unit truck with an Easy Pass, the toll is $21.60 during the peak period each time they enter the congestion pricing zone, with no daily cap. Diesel prices are back on the rise. The Energy Information Administration puts last week's national average at $3.63 a gallon, up nearly 5 cents from a week earlier. Every region on the EIA survey saw prices go up, including roughly 6-cent jumps in the Midwest, Gulf Coast, and West Coast regions. It's a similar story on the ProMiles.com daily report, where the national average on Tuesday morning hit $3.59 a gallon, up more than 3 cents from the same day last week. Prices were up in every region, save for New England, where it was down by less than a cent. The U.S. Department of Transportation is seeking feedback about unnecessary regulations, and so far, truck drivers have been more than willing to give it. Several drivers submitted comments cited the lack of flexibility in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's hours of service regulations. One wrote that if you are driving 11 hours a day, taking a 30-minute break within the first 8 hours, and working a total of 14 for the day, there is no need to have the 70-hour rule. Another commenter took aim at the electronic logging mandate, writing that every driver is different and that drivers make bad decisions under the stress and pressure the ELD creates. The comment period, which runs through May 5th, is part of the Trump administration's deregulatory push. The public feedback will be used to identify regulations that could be modified or repealed without hindering safety. Tariff concerns are pushing the delivery schedules for global shipments forward. Brent Hutto of Truck Stop says because of this, load posting volumes continue to increase.
A lot of the manufacturers or people that import and sell things are concerned about tariffs, so they are moving more goods right now, and it has increased in the marketplace. Now, that doesn't mean they won't stay pretty positive, because this tariff thing is not a short-term thing. It's going to continue to be moving throughout the system. You're already seeing countries now kind of wanting to negotiate with America. And if you dig way into the tariffs, then you'll understand why we're doing them. So I encourage anyone to do that. Please be informed. But the marketplace is continues to do well for truckers. The market demand index, sort of the pressure point in spot market freight, last year, so in 2024, at this time, it was 71. Last week, it was 113. So it's dramatically above where it is. That just tells you there's a lot more freight in the marketplace, which is really good.
Hutto adds that the actual load availability inside the spot market is 31% above where it normally is. Two organizers of Canada's 2022 Freedom Convoy were found guilty of mischief last week. Tamara Leach and Chris Barber faced a total of 6 charges altogether. They were found guilty of mischief, but not guilty on charges of obstructing police and intimidation. Both had pleaded not guilty. The Freedom Convoy was organized in protest of Canada's COVID-19 measures and vaccine mandates. Sentencing for Leach and Barber will come at a later date. A third organizer, Pat King, received 3 months house arrest earlier this year after being found guilty of 5 counts. A bill moving through the Arkansas House would broaden enforcement on truck drivers who are not in compliance with the English language proficiency regulation. HB 1914 states that the driver of a commercial vehicle would be in violation if he or she cannot read or speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the public, to understand highway traffic signs and signals in English, to respond to official inquiries, or to make entries on reports and records. First-time offenders would face $500 fines. Repeat offenders would face $1,000 fines. Federal regulations currently require a person with a CDL to be proficient in English, but there's no state law in Arkansas to that effect. The bill's sponsor, State Rep Wayne Long, acknowledged that Arkansas State police officers do enforce the rule, but he said county and local law enforcement do not. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association supports the bill, but because the issue extends beyond the Arkansas border, OOIDA thinks it would be better for the federal government to address the issue than for it to be left up to each state. Efforts to make stage crashes with a commercial motor vehicle a federal crime continue in Congress. Representatives Mike Collins of Georgia and Brandon Gill of Texas introduced the Staged Accident Fraud Prevention Act this week. The bill aims to address schemes involving vehicles intentionally getting into wrecks with tractor-trailers in an attempt to collect damages. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association also supports this bill. OIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh said staged accidents are not victimless crimes. They're calculated, premeditated assaults that endanger lives, destroy livelihoods, and compromise highway safety. A New Orleans stage crash scheme dubbed Operation Sideswipe places spotlight on criminal conspiracies aimed at cashing in at the expense of motor carriers. More than 60 defendants have been charged in those cases. And finally, we're continuing to monitor movement on several bills in Congress that could make your jobs a bit easier. The Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act fits that bill, and it just picked up another supporter in the House. Representative Addison McDowell of North Carolina is the 32nd co-sponsor of H.R. 1659, which was introduced just over a month ago. The bipartisan bill would pump $755 million toward the truck parking crisis. To get your elected representatives on board, check out the FightingForTruckers.com website. And that's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Federal standards for setting speed limits include a simple concept that many truckers know, that having some traffic forced to move slower than the rest of the traffic is inherently unsafe. And some states have responded by ending their split speed limits. But now one state is considering a new split speed limit. A bill in New Mexico's state legislature would call for trucks to be limited to 65 miles per hour, while cars continue at 75 miles per hour. OOIDA is urging truckers based in New Mexico to call their state lawmakers about the bill. We'll have a link at our website, landlinenow.com, to where you can look up your state lawmakers' contact information, or you can call them at 505-986-4300. Again, you can find that link at landlinenow.com or call 505-986-4300. Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, are at the Petro Truck Stop in Glendale, Kentucky. That's located at Exit 86 on Interstate 65. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. For many years, truckers have struggled with a growing problem, freight fraud, and it can easily cost a trucker their entire business. Now, Congress is stepping up to do something about it. That's in the form of two bills, S-337 in the Senate and H.R. 880 in the House. They would give the FMCSA the authority to go after those committing fraud. Contact your lawmakers in Congress at either 202-224-3121 or through the website fightingfortruckers.com. Next, Ashley Blackford discusses actual cash value versus stated limit insurance policies with the folks from OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Landline Now, welcome back. Like tires, fuel, and an engine, insurance is one of those things you just have to have for your truck. But not all insurance is created equal. Ashley Blackford is here with the experts from OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department to answer some questions.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waske with OOIDA's Insurance Department. How are you doing today, ladies?
Good. How are you?
Great. Wonderful. Even better now that you guys are here.
I know, right?
Today we are talking about actual cash value versus stated limit policies. Now, those are the two types of physical damage policies, right?
Yes.
I guess first off, let's start talking about what is physical damage.
Physical damage is basically, on personal auto, you would call it comp and collision. On commercial auto, it's rolled into one coverage called physical damage. So fire, theft, vandalism, collision.
Physical
damage. Physical damage to your equipment.
Yeah, to protect your equipment. Yeah. Let's talk about the actual cash value, or ACV, of course. We've got to have an acronym there. What is that?
Actual cash value is if you do have a loss, whether it be a total or a partial, it's going to pay you the value, market value, so what it's worth at the time. It doesn't pay you an exact limit that you want to insure it for.
What are some of the pros and cons to that?
I mean, honestly, I don't know that there's any cons to actual cash value, because the concern is, stated limit is where you say, I want to cover it for $50,000. And the con to that is the market fluctuates enough that it's a daunting task to try and keep up with what you think the current market value is. When you go with an actual cash value policy, they're, like Lisa said, they're going to pay the value at the time of loss. So they'll research the market. And especially right now, I mean, the market, we've seen it really down and we've seen it skyrocket,
right,
especially depending on the year, make, and model of your equipment. And so, yeah, I don't know if I can think of any cons to actual cash value.
What's an example of actual cash value policy, and can it vary with different insurance companies?
I'm not sure that it varies. I guess maybe the adjusters for the claims office, I guess their findings may vary.
Depend on where they are looking for comparable trucks. They may, in certain areas, they may be worth more than, in some. So,
well, and I don't want to speak too closely on this because it's not my area of expertise. So, full disclosure, I don't know everything. But I think different insurance companies use different manners of finding the actual cash value. Some have a database, or they can plug the info into a database, and it kind of like Kelley Blue Book,
right,
for commercial equipment, where it just says, hey, here's the value. And then other insurance companies, I feel, may research the market physically, go look on truck paper or things of that nature and see what equipment like that is going for in that area. Because like Lisa said, that has an impact where you live and, what the cost of equipment is.
What if you don't agree with the limit that the insurance company is giving you?
I mean, you can always try and find your own comparisons. Look in your area, try to find trucks maybe that are same year, make, model as yours, and close in miles, similar in specs, and see what you can find. I'm not saying insurance companies are going to agree with you and go with yours, but it can't hurt you.
Right. Well, and I would venture to say that there are times where the customer doesn't agree. And there's a lot of variables and factors that go into determining the value, or even repair, because they're going to determine the value before they determine if it's a total loss. And so, because they have to have that figure. So the truck's worth $75,000. Well, what's the cost of repair? Mm-hmm. They're always going to figure out what the value is first, I would imagine. But sometimes when they're talking about like cost of repair, OEM parts, and things of that nature, that's what we see people disagree with. I've seen them disagree with the settlement amount. but usually the insurance company is going to have their list of reasons, like maybe the tires are in need of being replaced, and that might have a little bit of an impact, things of that nature.
Now, moving over to the stated limited policies, what is that?
Stated limit policy is you state the value that you want your equipment to be insured at. So if you buy a brand new truck for $150,000 and you want to insure it for that, that's what your premiums are based on. And that's what you could get in the event of a loss, because
emphasis on could.
Exactly. You want to look at that fine print because it's going to say stated limit or actual cash value, whichever is less.
Oh, fine print.
Fine print.
And this isn't us being glass half empty.
No. That's insurance speak for read.
Yeah.
Paperwork.
Will insurance companies help you determine the value of your equipment, or are you kind of on your own for that?
You're really on your own. I mean, they're not going to tell you what they think it is, because most of them don't want you to do stated limit. Well, I say most, some.
Right.
So you're really on your own. And
I don't think they want it to come back on them. Like, well, you told me to cover it for $75,000.
And most people, we always believe that our stuff's more valuable than it may be in the market.
Yes. Facebook Marketplace is a good example of that. What if you underinsure and then get in an accident?
I mean, the unfortunate part of that is you'll get the stated value, so if it's worth $75,000 and you stated it at $50,000, you'll get the $50,000, but then you're out.
Yeah, they're
$25,000.
They're going to keep your truck because it's,
Yeah, okay. Now, what if you overinsure? Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. I mean, but something you have to think about too, if you have a, 1985 Freightliner or Peterbilt, whatever, that's it still may be considered classic and worth, a decent chunk of change. I'm not saying that insurance companies really think this is how it's going to go down, but you have to think of it like, okay, someone's going to call and insure that equipment for $100,000 and then go push it off a cliff because there's no way it's worth $100,000. I mean, I guess it's possible in some cases, right. And not that's an extreme example, but if you vastly overinsure your equipment and then expect to get that at the time of the loss, it's unreasonable. If it's not worth more than $25,000, they're not going to pay you more than $25,000. So then, even though you've been paying premium on $100,000 policy, you will never get that if the equipment isn't worth that much.
Again, the fine print.
Yeah. Yep. Now, if someone calls and they, say, I want to insure it for, $100,000, is the insurance agent going to say, like, probably don't need to do that much, or is that on the person calling?
Hopefully they would say that.
Yeah, hopefully they will.
Okay.
I mean,
but not a guarantee, obviously. Like, it depends where you call, I assume.
Yeah, it does depend on who you talk to, who your agent is, who you call. But like for us, we don't offer stated limit policies because of that concern. Because if we did, I think we would say, hey, there's no way the equipment is worth that much. Because we don't have to know what the actual cash value is to know what we're used to seeing and know that this is a $50,000 range, give or take, rather than $100,000.
Back in the day when I first started, they did do stated limit. And I remember hearing some of the agents have those conversations and trying to talk them out of the higher value because they knew based on claims or based on the market that they weren't never going to get that higher value.
Well, and the flip side to that, too, is underinsuring, because I had a call one time where the gentleman, he bought a brand new truck, and he either had cash down or a trade-in or something, but he bought the truck for, I want to say, like around $125,000, and he only wanted to insure it for like $75,000 because that's all he owed on the note, which makes sense in one manner, but what I was trying to explain to him is, if he has a loss in 2 weeks and they say the value is still, maybe it's not what he paid for it, maybe it's not $125,000, but let's say the value is still, $110,000. If he has a loss, if he's too far underinsured and has a loss, they're going to assess the value. I mean, the bottom line is his truck could have been deemed a total loss after hitting a deer, or like something small that's really not a total loss, but because they've grossly underinsured it, it's called constructive total loss, and it can get complicated, but it's problematic, yeah.
Do you have people who call and ask if OOID does offer the stated limit policy?
All the time.
All the time?
Yeah. We get emails, wanting to get a quote, and it'll say a value I want to insure it for, so we definitely, and then the agents just have to go through and explain why we do actual cash value.
Okay.
Well, and we've also had the situations where, we offer a rate, we offer a quote, and they say, well, I'm paying $200 less a month with, this other insurance company. And so when we dig down on that, we've found that they have a stated limit policy, and so that we will have that conversation with them. And actually one time it was a pretty new truck, and come to find out the other insurance company had a stated limit of like $10,000.
Oh, wow.
So then even though the policy wasn't with us, we still had to have that conversation with the customer, because no matter where they're insured, we don't want to see anyone go through that situation.
Right.
If he'd had a total loss and a $10,000 policy,
Yeah.
number one, that's why it was so cheap.
Yeah.
And then number two, we're not even sure that he realized it. So the agent made sure they talked to him about that and said, hey,
Yeah.
something you need to think about.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to special equipment, what should people keep in mind with that?
I mean, some things will increase value, but a lot of things don't. You like an APU, it can help with the value. New tires, unless you have a loss the next day, it's not going to increase any kind of value. Those are normal wear and tear things. So it just depends on what it is and if it's going to add value to your truck or trailer.
Yeah, and definitely a conversation you need to have with your agent. Make sure they're aware of it. Make sure that, they're notating it so that if something does happen, it can be taken into account when the value is being determined. And like Lisa said, sometimes it'll help the value and sometimes it doesn't.
I know, we've mentioned this before, but it kind of sounds like the benefit of going through an insurance company that understands trucking and truck value, I assume you're not going to find that at every company, right?
I would imagine not.
Definitely not.
It's the nicest possible way I can put it. I would imagine not.
What is constructive total loss? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. The example I gave earlier about the grossly underinsuring is, like I just gave the Cliff Notes of that can actually lead to a total loss. The actual definition is that a constructive total loss occurs when the cost of repairs plus the salvage value exceeds the actual cash value or the limit stated in the proposal, whichever is less. So basically, you have a loss. You have a stated limit policy for $50,000. You have a loss. They deem that the truck is worth $75,000 or whatever.
More, yeah.
It's already worth more than you have it insured for. So that's why I gave the example. If that gentleman were to hit a deer, that you've already underinsured it to the point that it's a total loss, even if it's minor damage, because the value of the truck is higher than the limit stated.
And then you add the cost of repairs in there. It's definitely going to be a constructive total loss.
And it is complicated. It's complicated to explain and to understand.
Yeah.
But bottom line, it's bad.
Yeah.
It is not going to work in your favor.
Right. All right, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waskey of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. If you have any questions, you can call 816-229-5791. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackbird. We'll be back after this.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Truckers are often the target of various scams, but of late, truckers and others who use toll roads are being hit with an unprecedented wave of texted and emailed scam messages. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Reddig. Welcome back to the program. Here at Landline Now, we've spoken to several state departments of transportation, toll road authorities, and others about the current situation. They've all offered both information about how to spot the scam and what to do if they target you. Susan Gergen is with the Easy Pass Communications section at the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and she had plenty to say about what's happening.
So we have seen, really it started more than a year ago with scammers, bad actors, whatever you want to call them, using Easy Pass and other tolling facilities as sort of their platform in which to try to trick people into clicking on a bogus link to pay a fine or a toll or whatever. They range in a wide variety of messages. Some of them are saying you have a simple $3 toll or $11 toll or very basic, click here to pay. Some of them say you have a violation. So they kind of use that threat of, oh my goodness, this is a severe infraction, you've got to pay this violation. Some of them will even go so far as to say your license will be revoked. And anything and everything in between. It's a wide variety. They're using text messages. They're using email. They're using a variety of different URLs, which are all fake URLs that they're getting mainly from the dark web. These URLs, even though they say HTTPS, which we've been taught that the S means secure. Yeah, sure, it might be a secure URL, but it's still a fake and bogus URL. And they're really trying to trick people into clicking on the link. Now, their goal is not really to have you pay that. I mean, they want you to pay that $3 toll, but that's not what they're going for, because they're not going to make their money on those $3 messages or tolls or whatever. What they're going for is to get that credit card data or any of your personal data, which then they can go on and use for a whole variety of other fraud activity. So again, they're using the tolling Easy Pass platform in which to try to trick people into clicking on an invoice, a violation, a toll, whatever that, supposedly, gets them the secure and private information that they want to exploit.
You mentioned that this has been going on for about a year. In talking with other various agencies in other states, they indicated a very similar time frame, but they've said that it has really picked up in the past month or two. Is that your experience as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say a year ago, while we were getting the scams, they were an inconvenience but manageable. They were a nuisance but manageable. Last summer, we started to see them hitting in waves. So about once a month or every 6 weeks, we'd see a wave, and there'd be a week of heavy activity of when they kind of spray the phone numbers and emails that they have. And a lot of those waves were tied to holidays or changes in, people's activities like travel, or things going on whenever there's chaos or something strange going on in the world, like the CrowdStrike. We saw a wave after the CrowdStrike happened last July, and I kind of knew that when that happened because they're preying on people when they're busy and not paying attention. This year, 2025, it's been nonstop since the first of the year, since January. Every day, our phone lines or email or whatever, we're dealing with scam inquiries. The good news here in Minnesota is because we've gotten a lot of alerts out there, a lot of our inquiries right now are people, instead of calling and saying, hey, I clicked on this, they're saying, I got this, I think it's a scam. Can you confirm? So at least some people are becoming aware, but there are still people that are falling for it. And the sad thing is this year, in the increase, for a while there, they were really just asking for a toll or whatever and looking for credit card number. Now they're creating forms, fillable forms. So you click on it and there's a fillable form and they want your name, your phone number, your address, your CC card, your social security number, your driver's license number. And people are giving that data. And that becomes identity theft. That's no longer just trying to exploit a working credit card number to charge thousands of dollars. That's identity theft. So yes, huge increase. I don't know this for sure, but we've heard from, Minnesota's pretty small polling facility, but we partner with all of the other facilities. We've been, keeping in contact with all of them from both the East Coast and the West Coast, where they can do more robust takedowns of these URLs and these scammers. Many of them are saying, I've heard multiple times that there's kind of Chinese or Asian criminal gangs that have set up these shops, and they're paying for all of this dark web information, and they're just going at it relentlessly to everyone. Everyone. It's not, in fact, most of our inquiries are for people who are not regular Easy Pass users that are calling in. So they're targeting everyone.
You've mentioned that it's been nonstop since the start of the year. And one of the things I've been trying to get a sense of is how many of these are going out, or how frequent is it? I know that you wouldn't have that idea because, of course, a lot of people may not call. But do you have a rough idea of how many calls you've been getting, either in terms of questions or complaints about the scam?
I could certainly get the stats, at least a rough estimate from our customer service team, but they say pretty much every day they're dealing with, I think they gave me the term of like at least a 50% increase in calls every single day since the first of the year, since January. So these past 3 months. And, they're coming in between all of the other regular customer questions and inquiries. I don't know. I would say that 50% might be low, but that's what they told me yesterday. A lot of times these scammers are smart. They'll hit first thing in the morning. So we'll see a wave of inquiries, or maybe they're at night. People are getting them in the evening, and then they're calling in the morning. And then we see a wave of inquiries, maybe around 2 or 3. Our phones will light up. We know when our customer service team knows when a new wave is hit, because the phones will light up, or the email, whatever our system that handles the calls and emails. And then they'll sometimes see a wave again at 2 in the afternoon or 3. They like to drop them like in the week, the Friday right before you go into a weekend, especially if it's a long weekend. And right now we're in the middle of spring break time. So our social media posts have been directly tied to the fact, we know you're out there traveling for spring break. Stay aware. Don't click. We will never text or email you for payment or personal information. So we've been trying to get the word out. But yeah, I can't, that one article I shared with you with CNBC from CNBC said they've seen like a 900% increase. I don't know that it's quite that high for us, but it's at least 50% of our calls every single day are dealing with just scam inquiries.
You mentioned that there's a couple of ways that they're approaching people that you never will. Let's say someone actually does owe Minnesota money from an unpaid toll. How would the state contact them? What should they look for that will indicate this is legitimate?
So Minnesota has a closed system. You don't get fined or pay a toll unless you specifically open an account and you have a valid tag. And then that tag is read by the readers as you're using the lane. So we have a closed system, and it kind of works like a debit card. When you open your account, you put $25 on, and then it pulls from that $25 and you replenish it. We do not have video tolling or license plate tolling here in Minnesota. So, and for us here in Minnesota, you're really only paying a fine when you're a single occupant vehicle during certain commuting hours. So carpoolers, van poolers, transit riders are always free, no tag needed. So for us, it's a closed system. It's very, very hard. You pay through your closed account system. So these texts and emails would not be a way that we would do it. But I will say, if you're traveling somewhere else, none of the Easy Pass or tolling facilities that I know of, none of them use email or text for payment or personal information. If you are out on the road and you drive through and it has video tolling or license plate tolling, you're going to get something in the mail that's on letterhead that is itemized, that shows it is time and date stamped of when you went under this facility, what the cost was, etc. And there's probably going to be at least 3 or 4 ways to remit that payment, probably within a 30-day time period. So you could either call, you could email, you could go in person if there's an in-person office. And then the final would be, maybe there'd be a remit payment form at the bottom. But it's going to look like a legitimate invoice with letterhead and 3 or 4 different ways of making a payment. That's for other places that maybe have video or license tolling. And it's really only going to be sent to the license plate, the address that's tied to the license plate. So many of these that people are getting, even if they try to include something that looks like an invoice, they're going to be basic. They're still going to have that urgency. There's, with any scams, I don't care whether it's Easy Pass or something else, post office, whatever, tax scams are probably happening now too. Whatever it is, there's always that sense of urgency. There's always that click here to pay immediately. That sense of urgency is one of your first red flags. Well, first of all, just if it's a text or an email, because I would go as far as to say is no legitimate business will text or email you for personal or sensitive information. That's just, if it's a legitimate business, that's not how they're going to work with you as a customer. So, but the other red flag is this sense of urgency. The other thing I will tell you, which a lot of people don't realize, for the text messages, if you see a 2-digit code that is not +1, like if you say, like the one I'm seeing this morning is 63, that's an area code. That's a country code from the Philippines. So we've seen them. We've seen country codes from Brazil. We've seen country codes from the Philippines and other Asian countries. We've seen, from a variety of different countries that are using that. So that's another red flag. Even if it's a +1, which is the USA's country code, it still could be, although I think a lot of them we're seeing are international. But so that's another red flag too.
I know that people are calling you to find out if it's a scam, but I'm kind of curious what your advice would be if someone does receive one of these. What should they do? Is there a particular agency, especially in law enforcement, they should contact?
So first of all, I tell everyone, do not respond or click or do anything. Do not respond at all. If your device that you receive it on has an ability to report it as junk, do that. So delete and don't respond to anything. If your device has the ability to like, I know iPhones and I believe Androids, you can report as junk, do that. There are, FTC and FBI both have ways that you can report scams. The other thing I would say that we're telling people, if by some chance you've clicked on something, even if that link, they weren't successful, you didn't think they were successful in entering your card or anything like that. If you've clicked on anything at all, even if it's inadvertently, even if you didn't think it went anywhere, take actions to secure and protect your personal information. Start watching that card that's on file to make sure that there aren't, bogus charges being put on there. Alert your bank or your credit card, because what will happen is some of the very sophisticated scammers, as soon as you click on it, they have access to your phone. So even now, those are the pretty sophisticated. Most of the fly-by-night folks are not maybe going that deliberate. But so the FBI has an Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is www.ic3.gov. So www.ic3.gov, where you can file a complaint. FTC also has one. Federal Trade Commission is FTC, and it's reportfraud.ftc.gov.
I've been talking with Susan Gergen of the Minnesota Department of Transportation about some recent scams involving texts, emails, and toll roads. We'll have more on that topic in a minute. This is Landline Now.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Before the break, I was talking with Susan Gergen with the Easy Pass Communications section at the Minnesota Department of Transportation about some recent scams using text messages and emails to target people who use toll roads. As I mentioned at the top of the story, this is happening in states across the country, even those that don't have any toll roads. One example of that is Missouri, again, which has no toll roads, yet people are receiving messages saying they owe some unpaid tolls. Another such state is Oregon, where Chris Crabb of the state's DOT says it's much the same story as Missouri.
We do not have a toll program. And, we were talking about a year and a half to a year ago. We were looking at doing a tolling system, and I think that's probably when the first scam started spreading, was around that. But yet now, not even a toll program. These are 100% fake messages and phishing scams.
Crabb went on to say that most of the scammers are using text messages, but otherwise it's a very similar story to what's happening elsewhere, and it's sparking confusion similar to what highway users elsewhere are saying.
Yeah, we get a lot of people who reach out to us saying, hey, is this for real? Hey, is this actual? Did you know you're sending me this? And so we've been doing a lot of clearing up of miscommunication that, no, this is not for real. This is a scam. A lot of people are concerned about what do they do? And we always let them know the easiest thing to do is immediately delete the message and then block the number so that they won't come at you again.
And Crabb says the key to prevention, to avoiding trouble before it starts, is to recognize which messages are scams versus real messages. And a big part of the scammer's technique, bluntly, is to scare you.
Urgency and threat, those are two of the big ones. They usually say, you have to pay now, or you're going to be sent to collections, or, things that are really, your immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, I didn't know I didn't pay that toll. I don't want to lose my license. They try and scare people. They almost always will include a link. And those links that's where you get in trouble. If you click on them, they'll lead to a fake website where people will steal your personal and financial information. And then lastly, they impersonate. So they're trying to appear as credible as possible. So by claiming they're with the Oregon Department of Transportation or Oregon DMV, people trust those organizations and assume it must be for real.
As we mentioned earlier, this is not restricted to one state or even a small number of states. It's everywhere. That includes Texas, where Adam Hammonds of the State Department of Transportation says part of spotting the scam messages involves looking at the details and seeing if, after a more thorough examination, it really looks like something a state DOT would send out, or in the case of emails, if it actually even comes from a state DOT email address.
A lot of them just look weird, right? There's a little bit off. There's a weird email. There's just maybe a couple of spaces here and there. But some of them can look a little bit real. So that's why we want people to stay vigilant and watch out for these, because these are happening and they are happening, people. And we want people to watch out for them so they don't fall victims to the scams. Because text tag will not send any notifications about past due bill notices. So they will not send any kind of text or emails saying, hey, you have a bill that you owe and you need to do this now or something happens. That's kind of the form that these messages are taking. And if you get something like that, that is a scam. It's what you need to do. If you get something like that, don't do anything. Don't give any messages. Don't interact with any links. Don't interact at all with that message. Just delete it, and that's it. That's all you need to do.
Hammonds added that in Texas, there is one mistake the scammers make that indicates right away that the message is a scam. And it all comes back to the fact that no messages should be coming from text tag at all.
If you get a message saying you recently took a toll road through text tag and you need to pay your bill, that's obviously a scam, because text tag has been taken over billing operations by Harris County Toll Road Authority. In the past, we would send a bill in the mail to the address associated with your driver's license. That's how you would get your first bill. If you have a text tag account and you opted into text notifications and email notifications, you could get a text talking about your account, but it would not be saying you have a past due bill notice. So there can be communications like that if you had opted in. In terms of your bill, you would be receiving emails saying, here's the status of your account, and that you may have a negative count, and here's the information. But it wouldn't say you have to pay this now or this happens.
That's the case with scammers that are targeting Washington state toll road users. Lori McLaughlin with that state's Department of Transportation says the messages can get threatening.
This is not just a Washington state thing. This is industry-wide, across the country. These scammers are impersonating toll agencies, and they're sending messages that create a sense of urgency. So they'll say something like final notice or pay now or have a due date that's like a day or two out from the date you received the message. A lot of times they'll threaten, hey, you need to pay before there's more fees, before we take away your driver's license, impound your car. So it's just a lot of really scary language in the texts themselves. And then they'll link to a fake website that, in the case of the ones that have been going out this week at least, looks very similar to the official website, in hopes of getting people to either make payments or otherwise provide credit card information to use for further purposes.
And just as with the other departments of transportation and toll road agencies we talked with, McLaughlin says Washington state would not ever contact customers over an unpaid bill using text messages.
Yeah, so with Good to Go, if you don't have a Good to Go account, we'd never be texting you. If you've used a toll road, we'd be mailing you a bill. You're never going to get a text. And even if you are a Good to Go customer, we'd never send a text asking for payment. It would always be something like an account alert saying, hey, go log in, update your credit card, or, you've got a low balance alert, something like that. It would never be a, hey, pay us now.
Again, that was Lauren McLaughlin with the Washington State Department of Transportation. One thing that was consistent among all the various agencies we spoke with, and that is their advice for handling this influx of scam messages. Remember the most basic principle to follow. No legitimate agency will send you a text message asking for immediate payment. Most won't send messages by text at all. They certainly are not going to send you one threatening you if you don't pay right now. If you receive an email, look at the address it's sent from. Unless it comes from that state's DOT website, it's likely fake, and especially if it's from a Gmail or Yahoo address. And with any email or text message you receive, even if it says it's from a toll road agency or a state DOT, do not click on any link included. Again, legitimate agencies will not ask you to do that. Go to that agency's website and make payment through that if you do owe money. And if you need help, call the phone number listed on their website to ensure that you're actually talking with a real representative of that agency. And if you're unsure whether something is a scam or not, you can call OOIDA's Compliance Department at 816-229-5791. And if you want to report someone trying to scam you by text or email, you can report it to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov or to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. Again, those websites are the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov or the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. And of course, we will have those website links on our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the photo or headline at the top of the page, and that's where you'll find all the website links, email addresses, and phone numbers we mention here on the show. Again, that's at our website, landlinenow.com. That's our show for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with more. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer,
I farm,
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.